Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being so punctual. Before we officially get started, I want to just wait a couple of minutes to give other people some time to connect. But while we're waiting, perhaps you all can help us with something. How about we do some quick mic checks, some video checks. There is a questions field in the GoToWebinar GUI. If you guys wouldn't mind just typing into the questions field and letting me know that you can hear me, that you can see me, that would be super helpful. And then Fred and Eric, how about you guys say a couple words too? Let's just make sure audio and video is good to go.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, KJ. Awesome. Thank you, Allison. Yes, can hear you and see you. I can hear Fred.
From Austin, Texas.
Can we hear Eric from Austin, Texas? Yes, we can hear Eric. Okay, awesome.
Awesome.
Oh man, I'm so excited. Okay.
Joe, I can't see what they're typing. I can hear you saying that, but I don't see that.
We might need to.
Yeah. So I'm gonna keep an eye on the questions field, and then once we get to the Q&A session at the end, I'll play MC. So I'll read the questions aloud.
Okay.
But I think it's because you guys are panelists and I'm the organizer, so don't take it personally. All right. So let's give it just one more minute. How's everybody's day going? Hope everyone is still safe. I know lots of crazy stuff is happening in 2020 and
all the things in 1 year in one package.
Yep. Hopefully it starts to get better soon, come this autumn.
Well, look, the silver lining is we get to do stuff like this remotely.
Yeah, exactly. We get to do performance capture from our homes, and then there are creative people like you, Eric, who set all this stuff up in your house, which is pretty awesome. All right, so it is 11:02.
MoCap.
So it is 11:02. I think it's a good time to start. You guys ready?
Sure.
All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Jo Tark, and I am an Xsens product specialist based in Los Angeles, California. Joining me for today's webinar is the lovely Eric Bear, who has discovered something truly unique with the Xsens Link suit. We also have with us today Fred Junqueira, a motion capture director from Brazil, who will be walking us through the process of retargeting some primate data. So thank you to you both so much for joining me on this webinar.
It's great to be here.
Great to be here too.
So Eric, let's go ahead and get started with you. How about you tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and how you came to discover Xsens?
Well, so I'm a classically trained actor. I grew up in musical theater on the East Coast, New York City, and then I lived the first half of my life not in the performing arts. So I was building and running tech startups and inventing things. You know, as a creative, it's the kind of the curse and the blessing is to be able to make things up. And so I've patented over 100 technologies, which are licensed by all the major motion studios and the largest electronics and consumer electronics companies in the world. Some things that you might recognize, you know, when you're watching a movie and you're streaming or on a Blu-ray or back from DVDs, and there'd be a little bug in the corner, and you could click to get to behind the scenes. We'd click that or tap it, and the movie would pause. You'd go behind the scenes, watch all this great footage of people doing motion capture work, and then when you're done, the movie would pick up right where it left off. So that's one family of inventions of mine from 1994, before Blu-ray, before DVD, before TiVo, and all the motion picture studios use it. So that's just an example of some stuff I've done. But most recently, just about a month ago, I retired from running tech companies so I can be a full-time actor. And I've been in conservatory for the last 2 years, kind of unlearning all the bad habits of schmackty acting to be an authentic, fully embodied person living in alternate realities as you know, expressing that truth. And one of the things that inspired me to get back into the performing arts was the the newly reimagined Planet of the Apes films. And watching the behind the scenes, I was thinking, gosh, you know, I would so much rather be out there with arm extensions and playing beings that I love as kind of like a higher human without all the nonsense of humanity. To be a primate instead of being in courts and managing people and fundraising and all of that stuff. So I built some arm extensions and started playing with that and walk around the lake here in Texas. My kids are embarrassed to go out with my wife and I when we walk the dog because she's got on one hand, she's got the dog, and then I'm ambling on the other side, and the kids are like, what is my family? So, so I wanted to be able to do this. I talked to a buddy of mine, Damian Gordon at DreamWorks, who said, hey, you know, COVID, there's this cool opportunity here because you can work from home as a performance artist. If you can afford the system and you've got a studio that you can do this, you can work with a remote director like Fred and be able to perform here and have them see your rendered work in real time and direct you. So you're on Zoom on one channel and then sending data down another channel. And he said, so what you need to do is you need to go get an Xsens suit. I said, okay, great, I'll do what I'm told. So I reached out to Xsens and said, hey, can we, I'd like to try, you know, using this suit. I'm glad to buy one, but I want to make sure it can do primate motion capture because it's different when you're using arm extensions than when you're a human being. And got some great support from Audrey Stevens and Katie Joe here, but they said, you know, we never, our system's made for people. And we don't know how to do that. Certainly we have extra cables that we can use for props, you know, like you're holding a sword or something like that, that you can sense that. So Damien had hooked me up with this online community, the MoCap Motion Capture Society on Facebook. And it's just an incredibly generous group of people sharing ideas. And I said, hey, you know, I want to get an Xsens suit. Does anyone have any experience doing primate motion capture? Because that's, you know, near and dear to my heart. I'm a monkey. My company is Monkey Media. We've had the monkey.com domain since the early 90s, and I'm an animal activist. So it was like important for me to be able to act not just as a human, but be fully embodied in that way. And this guy, Ace Rule in London, who's a phenomenal arm extension, leg extension, you know, alternate creature being expressionist, said, hey, there's this guy, Fred Junqueira, who we tried doing something with some extension wires, but we never got it working. And I was thinking, extension wires? Katie Joe, is that a thing? Can we do something like that? So so they sent me this trial suit and got trained.
Eric, before we get into the technical details,
yeah,
I want to come back to that. Let's but that was a wonderful introduction. Now
okay.
Now we understand the connection between Eric and Fred. But Fred, how about you just give us a quick little intro, maybe tell the viewers a little bit about your experience with Xsens?
Sure, yeah. So I got in touch with Xsens 2013. Was previous that it was like I was working and coworker next to me, we were like, oh, we are doing animation and we are sitting all day, like every day, and we are working with movement. You know, we got introduced with the motion capture. That guy became my business partner at that time. We founded one of the first motion capture studios in Brazil called Hero Live. Since then, we were working with different projects for advertising, games, some short films. We had this opportunity to, basically, we had this suit that allowed us to go to different parties that we couldn't go before without that suit. And it was really cool with just one motion capture suit, how much jobs, how much projects we could achieve doing. And it's not just about motion capture, you know. As we know, we still have to do some polishing. We have like amazing motion capture with the Xsens, as we know, it's the best in the inertial system. and depends on the project. You have, okay, we have this live character. So the live character, you're not about to do any polishing. You need to make a good rig, a good environment. As we see the forest right now, it's really good. It's everything we are seeing now with the Unreal. And anyway, after working in different projects, I saw myself doing too much business, too much executive producing, dealing with team. It's really cool to deal with team, get like talented people, see how amazing it is to get not just the amazing performance, but like working with the people in post production. So I just decided to do a step back, got less projects. I started doing more remote work before COVID. Uh, and the remote work allowed me to travel. This is how I got connected to Ace Ruel in London. And this is how I got connected to Eric now. What I tried to do with Ace, we were doing another project, personal, a different type of project, not using the ARM extensions, but why not? Like I saw Ace doing what he does with ARM extension, like he's amazing performance, and why not try this? And we haven't tried that much. Wasn't working. I think I had a problem with the how the character was touching the ground. I think we haven't tried to change the wire like the same way Eric will show how he accomplished. But anyway, it's pretty cool to be here, and yeah, I would love to share anything related to motion capture, and we will share how we adapted the rig. And let me just get back to Katie.
Awesome. So going back to Eric's story, right? Eric, you reached out to me about the idea of altering the Xsens Link suit to capture primate data using your ARM extensions. The truth was I had no idea if this was even achievable, even as a product specialist of Xsens. I knew that with an optical system, it was as simple as just putting markers on the end of the ARM extensions, but I couldn't say for sure that you could do the same thing with an inertial solution, but you figured it out. So for those people watching, could you just sort of explain, I guess, technically how you set up the rig, the Xsens Link trackers with your ARM extensions, maybe how you did the body dimensions, then maybe we can open up MVN Animate Pro, the Xsens software, and just go through a calibration together and see some of that data.
Yeah, you bet. So, you know, different than in a kind of a traditional optical motion tracking system where you've got those little dots all over you and on your face. And when you start a session, you go into the volume and you have to take a T-pose, right? And then that way the cameras can see all the dots all over you, and you've got a helmet for tracking your face. With the Xsens suit, you see I don't have any dots on me. What I have are a bunch of these little accelerometer. They have accelerometers and a compass, a magnetometer, and a gyroscope that uses some sort of magic fusion together to figure out the rotation of every limb. So these things are all over my body. There's like in my upper arm, my wrist, my hand, on my thighs, on my calves. There's a couple in my shoe. There's one on my chest, different ones in my back, and then there's one on the back of this on this headpiece. But in order to have it map into the system, we have to have measurements of the body so that the system can then kind of calibrate the relative location of each of the rotation of the different limbs, right? So the first thing to do is you get a friend to measure you. And it's crazy, the Xsens suit actually comes with a measuring tape to help you do this. So, so the night before my first training with Katie Jo, my wife Jana, who's on the line here with us, measured all these things. So we need to measure the height of my hip at the rotation, the length of the knee, the length of the foot, the distance from the ankle to the floor, the distance between the shoulders, the distance out to the elbows, the distance out to the wrists, and then to the fingers, and some other things, which works well as a normal bipedal human with all your limbs. But the moment you get arm extensions, and these are my new great quadrifit arm extensions from Terry Notary of the Planet of the Apes fame, and choreographing all sorts of activities. When I put this on, now my arm is a lot longer, right? So my hand isn't down here, my wrist isn't, everything is wrong in terms of the measurements, because we want the system, we don't want to fake the system out by telling it different dimensions that don't match, because then the 3D translation of those sensors would actually be wrong. And those of you who work in 3D animation understand how if you do a rotation around one axis and then a rotation around another axis and then try and unwind it, it doesn't work. You have to follow the same path one way and the same path back. And so we really need to get the sensors in the right places. So we measured my kind of wingspan, if you will. We didn't have to change the elbow to elbow, but we did have to change the wrist to wrist, right? Because my wrist now is all the way out here on each hand, and then fingertip distance, because that would be virtually out here, right? So there's two measurements that are different. So then the trick was, how do we get this suit, which is made for a wrist sensor here and a hand sensor here, to work with an arm extension? And luckily, the sensors have a place where you can attach extra wires, because if you have a prop, like you have a sword or a hammer or something like that, you'd put that last sensor at the end of it. But the way that the Xsens suit is designed, that Y splitter for attaching the extent comes off of the hand, all right, which is not where we wanted it. What I really wanted to do was move my wrist down to the bottom of the sensor. So I switched which sensor was used where. So I moved the wrist sensor to my hand and then put a bunch of extension wires on the wrist, attached some Velcro onto the inside of the at the very bottom, near the bottom, right? It's about the height, when this sits on the ground, it's about kind of fist height. Now, different quadrupeds will walk around in different ways. A chimp or an ape will approach the ground like this. We're going to show a snow monkey who actually approaches the ground with all four hands like this. But now we've got my wrist down there and my hand up here, and then we switch that in the software. So how it went was Katie Jo, so we got the measurements the night before. Katie Jo gave me an hour's worth of training, taught me how to use this system. I'm gonna go in and show you some of this wiring. And she's like, hey, I gotta go, but I can come back in an hour. Like, great, okay. So in the hour she was gone, I attached these cords to this theory that I had about how it might work, poked around the software, found a way of switching the wrist and the hand sensors, because I looked on the back and I saw there was an ID, a little serial number, and I found the place that those are, wrote them all down and switched them out in the software. Found now that it's a lot easier, you don't have to write anything down. She came back an hour later and I said, hey, look what I figured out. She's like, holy cow, we've never seen that before. And that's why we're doing this seminar, because it's actually super easy to do once you know what to do. So, so why don't I show you in this. So so here's the thing that really gets me about this. I have to use a PC because I'm more of a Mac guy. I mean, I used a PC when I did time at Microsoft, but it was a number of years have passed since then. But I happen to have this super souped up Alienware PC, because the latest invention group that that I've worked on with my friend Rachel Strickland out of San Francisco is solving motion sickness in VR. And so we have this machine that does this stuff, which is perfect because we're working in 3D, so it's the same kind of GPU that it needs. So let's hide this beautiful Unreal, and let me close this window, and we'll start kind of a fresh. All right, so we're in MVN Animate Pro, which is Xsens's kind of pro version of their software for doing the capture from the body, right? So here we are. Here's my body. Let's load my dimensions as a biped, which is, you know, a normal human, as normal as it gets. And you can see these little green dots on my screen here are all the sensors that are on my body in the normal humanoid way. Now, the measurements that are important to look at here, we'll see wrist span, that's the distance from wrist to wrist, and arm span is from fingertips to fingertips, right? So we're gonna load, so let's see, my arm span is 170.5 centimeters. Let's load my quadruped measurements, and that changes to 240.5 centimeters. We're super precise. You might be like, why do you care about half a centimeter? Again, because if we have really high precision data coming out of Xsens to the FBX, did I say that right? The FBX file. Again, I'm super new at this, all right? Going out to an animator like Fred, then he can fine tune it, but you want your motion capture data to match your body as close as possible. So we're kind of down to the quarter of a centimeter accuracy here. Okay, so that's mapped, my body's on, and you can see my avatar here. Let's turn around, and he's looking super janky. My head's off to the side because it's not calibrated. So we need to do a quick calibration. Let me hook up my other arm, and then you know what's awesome about this is I don't really need a technician here at my house to do this. I can just be an actor and then have a remote person. Now, the place where it's really helpful to have a remote person is in calibration, because I can get the right hand on here. It's hard to use a mouse with arm extensions.
Yeah.
And I can't see the screen from that far away. So I'm going to do a quick calibration, which is basically telling all the sensors what neutral is. And I'm not going to do a T pose. I'm going to do what's called an N pose, because again, the cameras don't need to see under my armpits.
So Eric, before you press start, I just want to tell the audience, I know that there are these 4 squares in GoToWebinar. If you actually hover over the square that has Eric's desktop, you can actually maximize it. So it's better to see the interface of MVN Animate Pro. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, another reason why it's so easy to calibrate at home by yourself, if you're capturing your own data, is MVN Animate Pro has a hands-off calibration option. So there's basically a delay that gives you time to get into the neutral pose, to do the walk, and then complete the calibration. So let's do that, Eric. Let's go for it.
Okay, so Katie Jo, if you wouldn't mind just once I hit start, giving me the countdown, tell me when to walk and turn around, that would be super helpful.
You got it. All right, so go ahead and find your N pose. You should be in the N pose now, Eric. Perfect. Now walk forward for me, please. Walk, walk, and turn around for me, please. And walk back to exactly where you started. And then when you get to where you started, turn around and hold that N pose. Perfect. So it's now processing. You can choose to stay where you are in the N pose, or you can come back to your PC. And so at this point, we'll just wait until we get the status window for our calibration. And then at that point, we can start capturing some data or streaming some data. Almost done. All right. Calibration was 4. How about we try to go for another one? Yep. So, and start, and then let's have you run over to your position. Perfect. Now hold the end pose. Now start walking for me. Perfect. And turn around, walk back to exactly where you started. And turn around and hold the end pose. And how about we just have you stay there, Eric? You don't have to maintain a super rigid end pose, but just kind of relax in place and hang out until this processing completes. And then while the processing is happening, for those people who are watching the webinar, I just want to remind you that there is a questions field in the GoToWebinar GUI. You are more than welcome to answer questions throughout this webinar. Towards the end of the webinar, we do want to dedicate at least 20 minutes to your questions, and we'll do our best to answer all your questions. Okay, calibration was successful. Eric, we can come on over and press apply. When we press apply, we're basically telling the system where the origin of the capture volume is and what direction is positive X, or AKA the heading. So hold that end pose. Perfect. Now let's just have you walk around the environment. It's already trailing, perfect. So the walking around after calibration, we call it warming up the filter. So this part is super important if you regularly use the Xsens Link suite. So normally I'll have my actor walk around for about 20 to 30 seconds. Walking is what keeps our system magnetically immune. So that's why it's an important part of the calibration process as well. All right, so it's looking pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and save that calibration. Eric, there's a little save button next to the calibrate button. I just want to make sure that that's saved. Excellent. And you can just press OK. And so now at this point, I kind of just want to see you walking around with the arm extensions, and I want to visualize that, or the data in the viewport.
All right.
Look at that. Oh, that is so cool. And again, I had never seen anybody do this before. You know, when I started working for Xsens, I knew that you could exaggerate the body dimensions in the software, but I had never seen somebody also incorporate the arm extensions like Eric is doing. And what about you?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask you what like as a MoCap director and technician, what do you see in the data? What is impressive to you?
Yeah, for the people who are used with motion capture, they know how important it is to make sure the feet, or even in this case, the hands are touching clearly. Otherwise, if keep losing the contact from the floor, you have a lot of post-production. And as a motion capture technician, it's not what we want in post-production. Do a lot of post-production. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to use motion capture, right? So in this case, this is why this data, what I'm looking now, looks really good. Like it's like touching the floor, and it's not losing the contact. It's basically, and the reason I've been thinking a lot about this, the reason it's working so well, it's because it's using his actual measurements. You know, it's what he said. He worried about to be with a lot of fidelity, high fidelity, what really is his arm span, especially. You know, so it helps a lot.
Awesome. So I think at this point, Eric, let's see what this data looks like on a quadruped in Unreal.
That's where it gets super exciting. I mean, it's fun being a weird robot, but okay, so go to options, network streamer, and we're going to be shoving this data out port 9763. Now, in this case, we're just going to be running it locally on this PC, but we can set up a virtual private network, and we'll show you this in another seminar, where we can stream my movement in real time to Fred's studio, where then he can direct my movement and see this in real time in his environment. Okay, so let's make this a little smaller.
Yeah, if I like for some reason have a better computer here, or like a team, or anyway, just let you, I know you're tech savvy and you deal pretty well with the technology, but let's say we wanna just let you focus in your performance, it's good to just transfer the data and we will work from here.
Okay, so here we are in, let's make it a little bigger, in Unreal. You know, most of you probably know what this is you know, an engine for creating games and virtual cinema production. So what we need to do is we need to go to the live link, add a source, and yes, 9763 is our data that's coming in from the MVN Pro. And let's minimize that. So somewhere around here might be me. Where am I?
You know what'll help is if in
Oh,
the
there I am.
oh, there you go. He was blending in with the environment so well.
Yeah.
Oh, not going underground. Okay. Right. So that's me. You can see
Hello.
me moving my hands, and it's a little weird because I don't have this other arm extension on, but this hand is working well. I can wave to you. Let's get a little closer so you can see my eyes. Right. So you ever do a webinar with a monkey before? So this is a Japanese snow monkey. And we chose the Japanese snow monkey because I'm on the honorary council at Born Free USA, which has the largest primate sanctuary in the United States. We've got about 500 monkeys, and most of them are macaques, these Japanese snow monkeys. So this kind of just feels like family to me, to be able to embody, you know, these great little guys. And so there we are, you know, rendering in real time. You can see the plants moving, I'm moving, and what's really amazing about being able to see live data like this in performance as well as rehearsal is that now I see my body. It's like the mirror of my imagined body, right? It's not a mirror of Eric, but it's a mirror of Gizmo or whoever I am here. And what I can see, and depending on what type of creature I am, maybe I have an arched back that's common for these guys, or maybe it's like, you know, a different type of low hanging belly. Maybe the legs are shorter and stay down, or maybe they're more extended like a baboon, right? So, but those are things that I wouldn't be able to get by practicing on my own as a human. I can only really get that, you know, or like the width of my shoulders. So I can extend down and bring out, you know, I get to see my own.
To see your own performance on the character rig itself. So that's interesting. I you know, for a lot of us in the motion capture industry, when we're in production, we always have real-time previs. And I love that you said that, Eric. You called this real-time display the mirror of my imagined body. So it makes sense that in it making you feel that way, you can, I guess, stronger embody the animal that you are.
Well, that's exactly right. Because, you know, in the kind of performer that I am, I'm not pretending to be somebody else. I actually am someone else. And you can laugh, but that's really the only way I know how to pull it off and to embody the kind of emotional reality of the situation. It's no different as a human being or as a being with a whole lot of fur, right? I mean, we have consciousness and feelings and curiosity.
So For those people watching, if you want to drive your own monkey, the MVN Live link is completely free. You can go to the Epic Launcher Marketplace and just type in MVN Live link and download the plugin, and then just enable it within your project so that you can stream data from the MVN software to Unreal. If you've never used MVN before, my email address is right here. I'll probably put it in the questions field as well. If you're interested in a trial of MVN, I am more than happy to send you a 15-day trial license. Okay, so let's say we're not working on a real-time pipeline, but actually our project is more traditional animation where I'm capturing data in MVN, I'm going to export my FBX, and then I want to retarget that data in Maya. Fred, how about you walk us through the process of retargeting this Primate data onto this same rig in Maya?
Sure. Yeah, I can share my screen here. So even for the Unreal, we need to make sure the rig is working, right? So you can use. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yep. And then
Okay.
just a reminder to everyone, just hover over the Maya screen to enlarge it so you can see exactly what Fred is doing.
Okay, yeah. Another software, all the 3D softwares. So well, here in Maya, we can also do the same process in the motion builder, but for everybody who are used with motion capture, we saw a lot of T-pose. Okay, the T-pose. This is the data that Eric sent to me. I'm importing this data in my Maya. Let me just hide this. So not have this thing in front. Okay, this is what we receive after Eric export the data. This is like he's moving with his arm extension.
And again, that's not exported from Unreal. That's just straight from the Xsens software.
Exactly.
At
So
240 frames per second.
Yeah, in this case, I put this. I should use the 30 frames per second, but I'm just showing this first because of the T-pose. In order to match the character, we need the T-pose, and the actual rig for these monkeys that we got first inside, it's made for Unreal. As you can see, they're not. We don't see any T-pose here, and this is like this is not motion capture. Okay, this is a project made for a different purpose for what we are doing now. In order to adapt, we need to put the monkey in T-pose. So here's, let me open one here. Okay, I'm getting the original files. Just need to import. Okay, I'm getting one without the animation. Quickly loading. For the ones who are not familiar with motion capture, the process is you capture the data and you need to transfer the data. In order to transfer the data, you need to go through a process called retarget. You need to tell that one bone, you have your character, that the head of the character is the same head of the other character. We did this in Unreal too. It's every software, in order to transfer the motion capture data, we go through this process. So as you see here, my monkey is not in T-pose, okay? What I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna show you how to use the HumanIK, which is another famous tool inside of Maya and Motion Builder that allow us to map each bone to tell in order to transfer, to retarget the motion capture. I will quickly do one here, and then let me put this in isolate mode, and then here. Okay, here, better here. So this rig wasn't made for motion capture. I suggest if you know you're gonna use motion capture, you think about the rig since the beginning for motion capture. Okay, what we are doing here, it's adapting. We are kind of forcing by using a T-pose.
And the reason why it needs to be in a T-pose, right? Even though I never got into a T-pose for my calibration, the software for mapping all the bones onto a rig, you know, this animated character, expect a T-pose. So the output file that comes from MVN Pro puts my body in a T-pose on the very first frame. And that allows Fred to be able to map the two kind of right onto each other. And then the movement of where my body really went is translated properly onto you know, my alter ego.
Your alter ego. Okay, yeah. As you can see here, I'm going like close. I'm trying to go close to what we saw in the Eric's motion capture data. Okay, I'm just in a way to save time here. Go to straight to point. I already have T-pose done. Let me see if this is the right file. Okay, so this is what should look like. Okay, there is a few things more like rigging detail because this rig came from Unreal. You should check where's the bones, the axis, local axis is facing, because the one that Eric provided to me, it's facing to Z and the Y is up. I had to adapt. I already have another file, so I can go straight to point here. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, these two files are working pretty well. These two skeletons. So we need to match these. Now, if I move here, just Eric movement, just the Eric's skeleton is moving. Here's why we need the human key. Let me open another file just for the human key so you can understand. It would be better isolated. Okay. So we had to map each part of this, of his body. I'm gonna create a completely new here. Create character definition, and then we tell that I want to connect this part here, which is the hips, with the hips of this skeleton, and then we keep connecting up for each part. Again, a way to go straight to point. I already saved template here. You can also do this to make your process faster. So I have the whole body. It's green here because it's all facing the right direction of the axis, and it's parallel to the ground. There's a lot of things that who works with rig will understand pretty clear. And now, because I already have this mapped inside of the human key, which is this user interface here on the right, I can transfer this movement. And I had to do the same thing for the monkey rig, which I put in this T-pose. It's what I'm gonna show you right now, how the magic happens. Which, yeah, I need to go back to this. I already did the mapping for the monkey. I did exactly the same thing I showed you in the Eric's motion capture data. I mapped every part of these bones, and it's already working. What I'm gonna do here is just like saying this. I also brought that data, the motion capture data from Eric, to this same scene. what I'm gonna say is, hey monkey, which is this character 1, please follow the movement of this motion capture, this data, this skeleton. And this is what happened. It's copying the movement, and now we can see. Let me turn off these bones. And here's the data. This is the motion capture retarget. And obviously he's in like this gray here because it's different than Unreal and Maya. We can apply the texture, but I haven't applied the texture here, just like working with the rig. But we can see that it's working pretty well. Is here. After that, you can, like, as like animator, you can improve the data. You can go to like polish, you start adding how can I say, some animation layers. Let's say here, for example, the hands are not in the way because he's holding the arm extension all the time. So you can start going through the animation process. That would be like the animation cleanup if there is anything dirty, and then polishing, adding details. Like the tail, for example, you can use dynamics. You can just like animate frame by frame, and it depends on your scene, what you want to tell in a visual storytelling. And yeah, basically this is the process. And oh yeah, in Unreal, in order to work in Unreal, we had to have a T-pose in Unreal. Otherwise, it would not work, because we have this T-pose thing that all the softwares communicate the same way to transfer this data.
Awesome.
And of course, what we're missing here is, you're not seeing facial expression because I'm not wearing a helmet right now. Yeah. We're not seeing digit expression because I'm not wearing gloves. But we'll follow up with a more finely tuned monkey at a later date.
Okay, Fred.
Yeah, so more layers.
Just to quickly summarize your whole process, that was awesome, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. Basically, you exported the character rig out of Unreal. I'm assuming it was an FBX. You then imported that FBX into Maya. You also imported an FBX of the data coming from MVN Animate software. So in your Maya scene, you have your character rig and you have the data, or you have the skeletons for both. You characterized both of them. So you characterized
exactly, yeah. I have to,
and the skeleton of the MVN data, and then using basically the character controls GUI over here, you said this character rig is going to be driven by this source, and the source was the characterized MoCap data. Is that correct?
Yeah, you got it. Cool. You
okay.
can, after that, you can bake to the skeleton to a contour rig, because you don't have, as we have just skeleton, we need a rig, and animators are used to rig. Sometimes I got in my team, I got like animators that are not used with motion capture, so we made sure that they had these controllers. In Human IK, you have the control rig. You can also, it's all about rigging. You can, your motion capture will be amazing if you have amazing rig. What I did here, it's pretty fast. I'm not a rig specialist. I know all these things because all these years dealing with motion capture. And well, you need a good rig. If you wanna, for some reason, put some muscle system, you wanna do like a Planet Ape style, you will need a lot of details that come from the rigging part. It's a teamwork.
Gotcha. Okay, so why don't we, I want to be mindful of time. Why don't we transition over to some questions? We do have some questions that people have been asking. This first question is actually pretty cool. It says, hi, I'm Federico. Eric, have you tried training an artificial intelligence with all the data obtained from your movement and let the monkey act alone? That's pretty freaky. Maybe that's something that we figure out later on.
The
mean,
digital humans trend.
Certainly,
These
certainly
digital
there's
things.
interest in replacing actors. But I'll tell you, as an actor, I'm interested in not replacing actors, but finding more ways to be expressive as a fully embodied being. Whether that's as human beings or as really small things or as really big things, but to bring kind of the life force in play to tell great stories that are impactful for audiences. So that's more interesting to me.
I love that answer.
Yeah. You have different ways to approach. If you're gonna do a movie, I mean, it's good to have someone to direct. I don't know. It will maybe someday we will have more these digital human things, which is a pretty trendy, but it's a lot of work in the programming side for sure. It's
I mean,
something.
where it can be really effective, I think, is and especially look, now it's so hard to shoot because of COVID-19, and we're going to find that the industry has changed forever in some ways. So crowd scenes, where you need large groups of people or animals, we can use virtual production to swap that in. But generally, it would still be based on human movement, and then you can apply your AI to formulate crowd activity.
Next question is, Eric and Fred, can you tell us the features of the computer that you use? Well, it's a good question, right? If you want to have a computer that's strong enough to run MVN and Unreal Engine.
Right now, for me, I don't have anything stronger right now. It's a laptop MSI GS65 with GeForce GTX 1070 and i7 for processor. I mean, I'm not doing anything complex right now. I always say, the more things you add in your scene, the more dynamics, VFX, and like want to put fur, okay, fur, all the things can just make your computer cry. My computer is not crying right now, is what I'm trying to say.
And mine is an Alienware laptop. It's like a R17R or something like that. It's got an Intel i9 with, I don't know, 8 or 12 cores. And the GPU is a something or other 1080. Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, I think you told me the other day. Yeah, it's a 1080.
I'm kind of allergic to spec details like that. So it's something like that. But it runs, I haven't had any bogging down. The fan certainly doesn't spin up like when we're doing the VR stuff. So I don't think we've come anywhere close to pushing the boundaries on what this thing can do. Now, I haven't tried doing any cinematic level rendering. Again, because I'm an actor and I'm more interested in the expression, I'll let other people, take my performance from there.
With that being said, if there's anyone who wants to collaborate with Eric that is watching this webinar, can they reach out? Eric, are you open to that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can, my email is eric@bear.co. That's CO, no M. And you can follow me on social media. It's at Eric Gould Bear, EricGouldBear, and it's the same handle on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all over the place.
I'm going to make you an organizer so you can type that into the questions field. And then Fred, I'll do the same for you. If you also are comfortable sharing your email address, if people want to get in contact if they have more questions. Cool. All right, next question. It says, have you tried Unreal on Mac? Do either of you work on a Mac? Well, most of the MoCap stuff that I do, I don't use a Mac for. MVN, Animate Pro currently only works on a PC. And then every time I've used Unreal, it has also been on a PC, but I'm not really sure if Unreal can run on a Mac. I imagine Epic
I think
made
it can, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
it does, but the plugin doesn't work. So you can join a multi-user session, but you won't be able to do the MVN link.
yeah, I think you could have your Unreal machine be a Mac. That should be fine. But then, right, your MVN machine would have to be a PC, and then both devices would need to be on the same network so that you could stream into your Unreal scene. Cool. Next question is, when you are calibrating the MVN skeleton, is there a sound cue so you know when to be in the pose? Jeremy, no, unfortunately there is not. You are not the first person to ask that. I think we have some people from the Xsens team that is watching this webinar. I think having little sound cues would be a brilliant idea to add to the calibration feature in MVN, because I mean, like Eric said, sometimes he has to be holding that neutral, looking straight ahead. He can't be looking at his machine. So if there were some sound cues, that would be awesome. I think the other thing that Xsens was taking into consideration is when our tools are used on sound stages. So I guess technically you're not rolling when you're calibrating, but you never know. But maybe that's something that we can add later. Okay, let's see. We have so many questions. From my experience with the Xsens system, I have found that the clavicles don't capture the wide range of movement. Since apes use the clavicle a ton, are you doing any post-editing to exaggerate them? I know exactly what you're talking about. So it's like the shoulder motion on the, like when you're visualizing the data on the biomechanical model in the viewport. Actually, Eric, if you want, you can kind of show people an MVN over there, but if you kind of reach up, you don't have that translation of the shoulder and the clavicle going up into the Z plane. That is something that will need to be exaggerated in post-production. So
you get some movement. I mean, if you look at the if we look here, it's just not.
Yeah, you get some shoulder movement, but it's very subtle. And I think it's because you basically have two trackers on the kind of on the shoulder blade area, and then you have one for the sternum and then one on the pelvis, and that kind of moves the whole torso. But what's impressive is that you have one sternum tracker and one pelvis tracker. Those two trackers still create 4 bones down the spine. So you do get some articulation in the spine.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we saw in the monkey, right? So
okay.
Yeah, and definitely you it's like here's this thing, I keep saying that there's no control done. It's good to analyze what the monkey is doing, like what type of the monkey. It says no monkey. Okay, let me watch some videos how these monkeys are walking around so I can understand how I can work in post-production and what I can predict and avoid and save time from production. It's what you guys are trying to do with the motion capture side.
Okay, so I think we have one last question here. It's perfect because I did not want this webinar to go over an hour because I know you guys have lots of stuff to do on your Friday, I'm sure. Last question says, do either of you ever try to capture MoCap barefoot? Have you found this to help get better, more lifelike data? So, I mean, you can totally capture barefoot when you're wearing the Xsens Link suit or if you're wearing the Awinda. I know that in our kits, they have these little Velcro tongues that you put the foot tracker on so you can conveniently stick them in your shoe. But sometimes what I do, because I like capturing data barefoot, like I will just take some gaffer's tape or like an elastic band to hold the tracker down on my foot so it doesn't shift around, and that'll give you better data, I think, because sometimes the tracker, if it's inside a shoe, it may move depending on how dynamic your actions are. So yes, you can
see
totally.
How much articulation we've got here, right?
The one tracker basically provides 2 bones. So you have the foot itself, but then if you stand up on your toes, Eric, maybe we can show, or stand up, yep. And then kind of pull the camera out a little bit so that they can see. You can see the yeah, you can see the articulation of the ball of the foot basically bending there. So that one tracker provides you with two bones. So you get that joint in between. Awesome. Okay, so I think it's safe to wrap it up here, guys. I just want to make sure, does anybody else have any more questions? I'm going to put my email address, katiejo.turk@xsens.com. I'm going to send this to everybody. So if you guys have any questions at all, you know, if you have more questions about Xsens, if you're interested in doing a free trial, you can totally download a free trial. There's some pre-recorded data that's in the download, so you can stream right away into an Unreal Engine and get a feel for what the process is for setting up a character in Unreal or Unity or Motion Builder or whatever your pipeline is. So feel free to email me. And then Eric and Fred, did you guys already put your?
Put it in the chat, but I don't see yours.
That's what I should do because I put mine in the questions field. Whoops. katiejo.turk@xsens.com. Cool. Awesome, you guys. Eric, Fred, thank you so much, you guys, for doing this webinar.
Welcome.
Thank you to everybody who watched the webinar. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you have any feedback, totally put it in the questions field. And I know that Eric, Fred, and I definitely want to do a second part to this webinar, like Eric had mentioned, hopefully incorporating facial capture and finger capture and seeing all of that data streaming in real time. So if you're also interested in that, let us know. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.